The British royal family has ever been a tapestry of tradition, obligation, and silent sacrifice. Rarely, however, do we glimpse those sacrifices so exposed, so unveiled, as in the recent message from Buckingham Palace by the Duke of Kent. It was not another royal pronouncement. It was a moment of truth, a moment of weakness that resonated far beyond palace boundaries. In the film, the Duke of Kent, 90 now, his shoulders frail, but his pride intact, sat in the warm light of his Kensington Palace sitting room. His speech was firm but with emotional threads as he declared he was to withdraw from public engagements. After decades of devotion, he announced that it was time to give away important duties and aspects of his heritage to the single royal he felt most able to trust, Catherine, the Princess of Wales. In reserved words, he spoke of her steadfast commitment to the crown, her empathy, her stability, and her profound grasp of duty. It was as much a transfer of duty. It was a symbolic passing of faith from one generation of service to the next. This news came at a pivotal time. King Charles III is still reshaping the image of the monarchy, streamlining it, updating it, and prioritizing relevance in a rapidly changing world. The Duke's choice, therefore, wasn't personal. It was part of a larger royal evolution. His retreating is a testament not just to the physical demands of age, but also to the fact that the future of the monarchy depends on those who can reach out to the modern people. And none has done that better than Catherine. The Duke's path has been one of unobtrusive stamina. Born in 1935, Prince Edward was molded by obligation from an early age, the son of Prince George, Duke of Kent, and Princess Marina of Greece and Denmark. His childhood was marked by war, by tragedy, and by the constant expectation that runs with blood royal. He served his nation devotedly, serving more than 2 decades in the military, from Hong Kong to Cyprus, before committing to a life of being defined by public service. Unlike members in the direct succession line, Edward's route was one of facilitating others, playing second fiddle but never second-rate. Decades on, he became the sort of unwavering loyalty that quietly serves to keep the royal tradition going. And so, when the video was made public on 9th October 2025, his 90th birthday, the timing seemed deliberate. The man who had dedicated virtually his entire lifespan to royal service seemed thoughtful, modest, and profoundly human. Seated in solitude, amidst the restrained beauty of his Kensington home, the Duke spoke not as a prince, but as a man at the end of his road. He talked about service, about renewal, and about his faith in Catherine's future leadership. Her work with military families, early childhood development, and mental health, all causes near and dear to his heart, became the natural extension of his life's purpose. It was greater than an endorsement. It was a vote of confidence in her as the monarchy's emotional center. In doing so, the Duke also reinforced Catherine's increasing position as the heart of the royal future, the woman who would be queen consort. But behind the dignity of the moment existed a tale of personal sorrow. The Duke's doting wife, the Duchess of Kent, died in September 2025 after a marriage of 64 years. It left him clearly frail, the burden of loss weighing into every phrase he uttered. For him, this statement was not merely one of relinquishing office, and it was one of ensuring his legacy continued in the form of someone he felt possessed the same unobtrusive strength his wife had exhibited. The Duchess's funeral in Westminster Cathedral that month was a somber and poignant occasion. King Charles, Prince William, and Catherine were all there, honoring a woman recalled as humble and possessive of a deep humanity. The Duchess, who famously converted to Catholicism, had always been on her own path, championing music, education, and faith in ways most personal. Her obituary in The Guardian labeled her as the royal who comforted others more than she cared for attention. For the Duke, the loss of her after over 6 decades together left something broken within him. Family sources reported his mobility problems, his dependence on attendance, and his silent withdrawal from public life. His daughter, Lady Helen Taylor, told that he had started making arrangements for a more secluded life as his 90th birthday was nearing. People who are close to him say this video is not a last-minute decision, but was prepared in advance. A goodbye he wished to give on his own terms before age or weakness robbed him of that opportunity. The symbolism was strong. Here was a man who had been by the side of 5 monarchs, from King George VI to King Charles III, now shutting the chapter of his service. The Duke's shaking hands and muted voice spoke more than any great speech ever could. They reminded everyone that even in the world's longest-lasting monarchy, time is still undefeated, but his message was not somber. It was imbued with faith in continuity, in strength, and in the people who would continue to bear his torch. By appointing Catherine, the Princess of Wales, as the one to inherit some of his legacy, he gave a very clear message. The next generation have to lead not through authority, but through empathy, and perhaps most movingly of all, this gesture came from a man who knew something about persistence. who had endured abdication crises, world wars, and the unremitting attention of modern publicity. He had borne the royal standard with unobtrusive pride, never angling for praise, never demanding attention. Now, at the age of 90, he was instructing one final lesson: that leadership is not merely about maintaining power, but learning when, and to whom, to relinquish it. As the clip went viral, millions were impressed not just by what he said, but by the sincerity in his eyes. The Duke of Kent may be standing down, but his impact, and the dignity with which he did it, will ring out for much, much longer beyond Kensington Palace. The clip posted through the official channels of the royal family was unprecedented. It wasn't refined in that far-off, ritualistic manner we usually anticipate from the monarchy. Rather, it was intimate, wonderfully human. The camera lingered kindly on the Duke of Kent, his hands locked tightly together, his voice shaking just so to show the burden behind every sentence. He had spoken quietly of his late wife, Catherine, the Duchess of Kent, of how she had been the gentle strength of his service, the steady hand that anchored him through decades of royal service. In that instant, the announcement was no longer just an administrative reshuffle. It was transformed into a love letter, a leave-taking, and a statement of a man who had devoted his whole life to crown and nation. As the monarchy adapts to a new reality, smaller, more streamlined, and under intense media scrutiny, the Duke's decision to step back is one of import greater than emotion. His retreat is both personal and calculated. By deciding on Catherine, the Princess of Wales, as the keeper of his duties, he is leaving his work in the hands both gentle and skilled. He once called her a beacon of modern royalty, and in this video, that admiration became legacy. The Duchess of Kent's passing threw a deep and unmistakable shadow across these last few years. She wasn't merely his consort, she was his compass. Through public rituals and private sorrows, she stood with him, her faith illuminating both their ways. Her 1994 conversion to Catholicism was one of the most definitive and the most hotly debated accomplishments of her life. In an era when royal protocol still looked down upon such actions, she chose to act by her conscience. That strength, that religious conviction, defined not just her path but his as well. Together, they later retired from active royal life in 2002, opting for simplicity rather than spectacle. For two individuals who had spent their lives in service, it was their way of taking back peace. But when she died in September 2025, that tranquility was broken. The Duke's sorrow was seen by the world. Media reports painted him as frail and unsteady at her funeral, his grief carved in every step. At 89, held gently by family members, he bid farewell to the woman whom he had shared more than 6 decades of his life. That photograph, the widowed Duke standing by her coffin, flanked by centuries of royals, struck a chord far beyond the palace walls. It wasn't so much the end of a marriage, but the end of an entire royal era. The Duke's goodbye video, issued just weeks afterward, seemed a continuance of that farewell. This time, not to his wife, but to his public life. For him, the resignation was cathartic and symbolic. It permitted him to mourn in purpose, to translate private loss into institutional rebirth. In a monarchy now adapting to King Charles's health issues and the diminished number of working royals, his move provided order, a means to transfer power without interruption. Catherine's appointment came as no shock to observers of the monarchy. Her activities reflect all that the Duke and Duchess represented: dignity, empathy, and service without fanfare. She has upheld the Duchess's Wimbledon tradition by backing the All England Lawn Tennis Club, and she's become a regular at military charities, an organic reflection of the Duke's lifelong devotion to veterans and servicemen. His commendations for her in the video were sincere and heartfelt. He referred to her as the ruler I have always loved, a declaration that was both familial affection and symbolic sanction. The 5-minute video proper was itself a masterclass in understated storytelling. It began with historic footage. Black and white shots of young Prince Edward in uniform, shaking hands with soldiers, smiling alongside his wife at engagements, before dissolving into present-day Duke sitting serenely in his apartment. The change was like time collapsing in upon itself, from youth's energy to old age's elegance. Published on his 90th birthday, the message coincided with King Charles's statement announcing a private family celebration, cementing the continuity theme. In those brief minutes, the Duke explained how he would shift responsibility of various trusts, philanthropic endowments, and honorary military ranks to Catherine. It was not about money in the traditional sense. It was about influence, symbolic power that binds royal names to national causes. Among them were charities near and dear to his heart: the Stroke Association, the Royal Engineers, and many schools. By placing these under Catherine's mentorship now, he secured that the values he and his wife promoted, service, religion, and empathy, would endure well beyond his time. Catherine, on the other hand, is at the fore of this changing monarchy. Following her struggle with illness in 2024 and her determination to re-enter the public eye, she has emerged once more as symbol and source of strength. Her 2025 calendar, Trooping the Colour, Wimbledon, and appearances throughout the UK illustrated that recuperation had only heightened her mission. The Duke's approval did not only dignify her, it cemented her as the face of the future of the royal family. Her attendance at the funeral of the Duchess of Kent, quietly supportive and visibly affected, deepened the public perception of her compassion and elegance. On the big picture, this transition is about more than retirement. It is about adapting. With elder statesmen like the Duke leaving office, Catherine's expanding portfolio spreads the monarchy's burden more evenly. This can relieve some of the pressure on Princess Anne and make the institution more efficient in the long term, according to analysts. But underlying the policy is a deeper emotional truth. This is about trust across generations. The Duke of Kent's choice resonates with a monarchy struggling to reconcile heritage with humanness. It's a reminder that beneath every title, there exists a human being. Beneath every symbol, a tale of resilience. His video, taken with shaking hands but a steadfast heart, closes that gap between the world that once was and the world yet to be. It poses a humble but strong question. Can compassion, rather than convention, uphold the crown? And well, as he leaves his legacy to Catherine, Princess of Wales, so does the Duke seem to respond to that question himself. Yes, it can, because love, faith, and unobtrusive resilience will always transcend protocol. The Kent family have always existed just beyond the royal glare, forging their own path while unobtrusively retaining duty. Prince Edward, born in 1935, was made Duke of Kent at just 6 when his father was killed in a warplane crash, thrusting him into duty far too early. That early trauma created the toughness that continues to characterize him. His children, George Earl of St. Andrews, Lady Helen Taylor, and Lord Nicholas Windsor, followed unglamorous paths, merging privilege with independence. The Duke promoted it, prioritizing freedom over form, a philosophy that reflects the contemporary Windsor way of raising princes and princesses without titles. Through them, the Kents remapped what it means to serve in silence while living with abandon. That same balance informs the Duke's last act. His wife's death in 2025 revived the memory of the death of his father 80 years before. Sorrow followed by duty. Now he entrusts his legacy to Catherine, the Princess of Wales, whose approval ratings rival past royal icons. The gesture echoes past transitions. The Gloucester's steady service, Princess Margaret's retreat, each showing how supporting figures hold the monarchy together. Yet this handover feels different, deeply personal, strategically timed, perfectly aligned with King Charles III's slimmed-down vision. By allowing Catherine to oversee his military patronages and charitable trusts, the Duke maintains continuity without costing the crown. Her compassion for soldiers, families, and children mirrors his lifelong causes. Her overcoming cancer and returning to major events such as Wimbledon showed both strength and approachability, both of which turned the public's perception of her away from aloof royalty, but to being one of them. This unobtrusive passing signals the end of one life's service and the consolidation of another's. The Duke of Kent's choice is not merely retirement, it is rebirth. His trust in Catherine ties tradition to the future, demonstrating that the monarchy endures not by remaining stationary, but by placing its confidence in those who will change.